Hello guys, today we're going to be making a pattern out of the doll coordinate recipe Dolly Dolly book. I'm not sure exactly which one this is, but it looks like that on the front. And we're going to be making that dress today. So the pattern is on the page, and I'm going to go over a couple of things that I use other than just that. So I've already taken the liberty of making up the pattern, and whenever I make my patterns I use this kind of medical table paper. You can use tissue paper, just thin, and you can see the pattern really easy to be able to mark it out. And since my last video, I'm using a few different little helpful tools. If you look at the pattern for the top, so this would be, matches up right. So all of this is where I would draw for everything that I'm going to need to sew, and it matches up exactly, so I make everything exactly the way it needs to be. This piece here is going to be for the inside collar. Now I use a fairly small knitting needle. It's a size 5, and the other tools I use are the pencil, super sharp scissors. I use this tool. I still use this to turn things right side out. Even with this pattern, I still use it to turn things right side out. I have a smaller pair of scissors. I don't use as much, but I do still use them. And this small rotary blade. It's the smallest one they have. And this is going to be the fabric we're working with today. And then something else that I'm using now since my last video, it's stabilizer. This this piece right here that's going to be on the inside of the neck, it gets sewn on here. This is what I'm using, and you have to be careful with this. It's got like this kind of plasticky stuff on this side, and it's nice and flat on this side. And if you're not careful, this plasticky stuff will glue itself to your iron. And I use just the little tulip. This one's probably like, I don't know, probably 5 years old, but that's what I use. So I'm going to get everything cut up in just a minute. Also, I use fray check. It's a couple bucks. You can get it at Walmart. Very important, fray check. And I'll get back to you in just a minute. Okay, I've gotten everything cut out, and as you can see, I've already gotten this lined up, and I've already done my markings where I'm going to need to cut and sew and everything. And everything is all fray check, so this is all nice and stiff, and even though it looks like it's fraying, it won't, because the fray check has been applied. And I'm going to go ahead and do the hem of the skirt. I always like to do that because it's the easiest and quickest thing to do, just the hem, and then doing the 2 lines for the gather. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the skirt, and I'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, so I've got the hem done, and I've done the 2 rows for the gather. And I don't know if you've seen my previous video, but in the previous video I talk about the seam being, the stitch being farther compared to the normal for the normal hemming. So for a good gather, you want this to be farther apart. And whenever I do the gather and I'm sewing the bottom to the top, I will sew in between the 2 lines. So we're going to get going with the top, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this piece, and we're actually going to hand sew it very loosely, and we're going to sew it in this area. I usually do a contrasting thread, so with this I'll use black. If this was a darker color, I would use a lighter color like a pink or a white, just to make sure that I didn't sew over it. So we're going to do the sewing loosely in this area, and then we'll go and do around here where we should. I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. Alright, so I've sewn on the stabilizer to the top, and it's the right side, not the wrong side. And then I'm going to sew around my marking and we'll flip it right back to the right side. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Okay, as you can see, I've done all the way around and the black is still in. Looks like this on the front. And I'm going to take the black out. Going to make a cut here. Sorry, right? Cut here, here. We'll make 2 cuts here, 2 cuts there, and cut this across here. I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so here's the cut here in the corner, and then you're going to do 2 right here, and then you're also going to cut here. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to flip it right side out and iron it flat, and I'll show you how that looks in just a second. Okay, now we've got it turned out right side out, and I've pressed it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a seam. Turn that right back out there. Very, very, very close. This will allow the underside to not try to flip out like it was just a second ago. And then this is where I use the knitting needle. I will go through here after I make my cuts. I'll make several through here, a few through this section, and several through here. I'll go back and I will press all the way along this line. And when I cut pretty much to the line, not exactly up to the line, but very close to the line. And then I use this to press it down. And what that does is it allows the fabric to fold over with a nice rounded view, so that it's not choppy looking, because you'll have the groove already made and it'll just automatically fold over. I'll show you that in a second also, but first this. So I'm going to do this, and I'll go ahead and cut the first side and sew it, and I'll let you see that in just a minute. Alright, so this is what it looks like, all the cuts, and after I've already pressed it, and you can see that it's nice and rounded. There are no flat areas, it doesn't look choppy, and these areas right here, I like to put underneath this turned over piece. And then this is what it looks like on the outside, so you can see even better there's no flat areas, nice and rounded. And this is what it looks like after we've sewn it. And here's the neck area. And whenever I sew this, just because it's easier for me, you do it however you want, I like to use the same tissue paper. This is a piece of the skirt, so I will use the same tissue paper. I will stick this on here, and then I will sew the hem all the way around. And for me, it's just easier because these little doodads, these little clipped pieces, like to get stuck in the sewing machine feeder right where the needle goes down and catches with the bobbin thread underneath. These will get turned and they'll get stuck in there, and then you'll have some that are like out here or they're bent, and it's just not cool. So I like to sew them on one of these, and it'll be nice and flat. I'll be back to you in a minute. Okay, so now we finished this side, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take the 2 sides, line them up together, and we're going to sew this portion here. It's about 1/4 of an inch in or so. We're going to sew that on both sides, and then we're going to iron it flat. I'll show you that as soon as I'm done. Okay, so we've got the 2 sides both done, and they're pressed flat. And now it's time to attach the dress bottom to the top, and we'll do that. Sorry. Well, we'll unfold this side, and we'll make sure to start the pinning there and go all the way over. If you don't know how to gather, I have a short tutorial on my previous video of how to do the gathering. It's about probably halfway in or so. So we're going to do that, and I'll be with you in just a minute. Alright, so we've done this section. We've sewn the bottom to the top. We have it flipped the way it needs to be, and it's, well, kind of pressed. Now I'm going to sew right along this section here, and then we'll be working on the edging. Alright, so I've already done the stitching all the way through, and then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it over. And remember a little bit ago when we were still working on the bodice, whenever we had this flipped out, we had this already here. So whenever you go to do this section, you just refold it because it's sewn here. So this is going to, remain the same, and you just fold it over. Here it is unfolded. And just fold it over and iron it flat. And then you're going to start sewing. And it doesn't really matter which side. I usually will do it on the right side. And as you can see, I do stitch it fairly close. And then here, I don't know, this is probably maybe an inch down. And somebody had asked me recently that if I knot everything or if I use the reverse stitch on my machine. I only really use the reverse stitch one time, and that'll be in a few minutes when we get to this section here. All the rest of the time I do hand knot. So everything on here is hand knotted, all of it. And on the ones like here in the corner, so it's hand knotted, and I've put a dab of fray check on there and I pinched it flat. And that will hold the knot. It's almost like glue, so it won't allow the knot to undo. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this side, and then we're going to turn it over and we will sew this section, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Alright, so now we've had this portion of the dress in the back sewn together, and this right here, I don't know if you can see that very well, that's really the only part that I use back stitching at all. The string that you see here is from this section here, and I make sure the back stitch goes over that whole section. That way it keeps it kind of locked in place. So I'm going to take this and iron it flat, and then we will stitch right across right here and flip it right side out, and all you'll need is a snap or a button, whichever you choose, and I'll be back with you in just a minute. Okay, so this is what the back looks like. I put a snap on it, and this is the lovely Story wearing the dress that I just showed you how to make. And that's basically it. So good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to post another video soon. I don't know, it's sporadic whenever I do. So also, this is the way that I do it. I do not tell people this is the way you have to do it. I am by no means a seamstress. This is just the way I do it, and this is from trial and error, and this is how I've learned. So good luck, and happy sewing.